Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Stephanie Corey. I am the CEO and co-founder of UpLevel Ops, and we are a legal operations consulting company. I spent the vast majority of my career in-house doing legal operations. I started years ago, way back when at HP, before legal operations was really its own discipline. And I stayed there for over a decade where I ran the legal ops team there and was the chief of staff to a couple of general counsels that came through through the door. During my time at HP, I started an organization called CLOC, the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, which is a large networking group for legal operations professionals. And then I moved to VMware, and then my last in-house role was at Flex International. And my general counsel and I then left our roles at Flex to start UpLevel, where we go around and help companies of all shapes and sizes get their legal operations in order. And I also, during that time, co-founded an organization called Link, the Legal Innovators Network, to also advance the legal operations profession and give people a place to kind of network and share ideas and templates and all that great stuff. And with me today, I've got Brandi Pack. Brandi, will you do the honors of
Yeah,
introducing
sure.
yourself?
So my name is Brandi Pack. I'm an AI specialist, and I used to work with Steph at Hewlett Packard in her IT legal team. I left the corporate world to run a winery for 15 years. I live in Napa, California. And after I ran my winery, I worked for Constellation Brands, which is a large beverage company. And Steph reached out and lured me back into the legal field. And around that time, my husband actually works at Casetext. He's the one of the head engineers there. We got early access to GPT-4. At the time, we didn't know that's what we were using. It was just kind of blowing our minds. It was this mysterious thing we were messing around with. But that kind of started my honestly obsession with generative AI, and I brought that knowledge back to the team. And since ChatGPT came out, we have been working to educate people about how they can leverage GAI in the legal field. And it is having a huge impact. So I'm really thankful that I had that opportunity to get early access. And we've been able to, I think, position ourselves in a really good place to be able to educate clients about this technology.
That's exactly right. And for those of you who don't know, Casetext, her husband, Brandy's husband, Gabriel, actually built CoCounsel, which many of you may have read about, which is the generative AI tool that actually took the bar exam and did better than many
Than the
poor,
average human.
yeah, people taking it in California who suffer through that thing. So all that being said, we're going to talk a little bit today about how generative, kind of the evolution of AI, because it's such an interesting topic. And again, I've been doing this for so long, so I've really seen how it runs the gamut. And really describing to you why this is a game-changing moment and why generative AI is different. We're going to talk a little bit about how to identify use cases, what some of those use cases are, and really how to drive adoption within your teams. We've got a few slides to show you, and you guys are going to be seeing this later. This is recorded, but at any given time, if you want to talk about this, please feel free to reach out to us. I know that you'll be getting our contact information. And so if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to us because this is a very new and exciting topic, and we're thrilled to talk about it any
You're
chance
going to
we
want to
get.
change the view because we can see your notes. There's no notes though, so don't worry. But
No, this is the problem. We are IT experts, can't you tell? Okay, let's see. How
yeah,
about
while you're
now?
doing that, I want to mention that I had no idea that in legal that AI was such a dirty word, and I was just like telling the team, "You're gonna love it. It's so amazing," and they were such a hard sell. So I just want to let people know we've gone through this process internally in our own company first. So we have experience with this, and we have come out on the other side, and we have converts on our team now. So.
That's exactly right. No, that's a great point. So when Brandy first came on board with us, she was so enthusiastic about it. And I had to kind of tell her, slow your roll, because first of all, the profession of law moves a little bit slower than other professions. And there was a lot of goodwill lost. And so let me start by giving a very quick background that I think will surprise none of you. So, way back when AI and what I'm talking about is, machine learning and some of the older, legacy AI tools that came out, they were actually game changing, but not really in ways that most of us could see. And so let me describe that for you. I'm old enough to remember the days where lawyers sat, and I actually helped with this, sitting in conference room going through boxes of documents to find responsive documents, right? Whether it's printed emails and contracts and all of that stuff. Well, legacy AI did change that entire process. The problem was that it was expensive and very difficult to implement and train. So when you think about large companies, like way back when we were at HP, they were big enough and had the volume where they could invest in tools like this and train the AI and to look for certain keywords and all of that. But smaller companies, that it was a totally inaccessible tool, and it just didn't make sense for them to get the benefit of AI if they weren't running 2,000 lease agreements per month, through these tools or what have you. And so the promise of AI, it wasn't vaporware. It really did deliver, but it only delivered to organizations that really had the money, the time, and the volume to train these tools. So enter generative AI. And this tool is different because it comes pre-trained and it's extremely inexpensive to use and it's extremely accessible to all of us. The problem is before any of us understood this, Brandi comes and she's like, everybody has to try this AI. And Brandi knows that we did an event, a link event up in San Francisco, and it's the first one. And I'm like, just, temper
This was a
yourself,
year and a
just
half
be
ago. Yeah.
it was a year and a half ago, thank you, and be prepared that not everybody is gonna be as excited about this as you.
I told her, I
And
said,
one
I
of
have to come because everyone's going to want to talk about generative AI. I got to be there.
Exactly. So she's sitting at a table and she said, one of the attendees there actually got a free trial of case text. She was in the beta group and Brandy's like, oh my God, you're in the free trial. What do you think about it? And she's like, I don't have time to mess around
Yeah.
with that.
Dude, I haven't even
And
used
then
it.
I haven't even used it. And everybody a year and a half ago had that attitude. And the reason I'm telling this anecdote is because fast forward a year later, and at the last Link event we did in San Francisco just a few weeks ago, Brandy was swarmed. And
Yeah,
so it's
exactly. It's been
swarmed.
a
So
complete sea change. Yeah.
that's right. So she sat at a table. She showed everybody how to build their own GPTs. And then she sat at a table, and every person was coming up to her during the breaks, afterwards, during the happy hour. Can you build this? Can you show me how to do this? Show me how to do that. And so, in a year and a half, the attitude has completely changed. And I think the one difference is from a year and a half ago to now, the technology changed a little bit. You've seen new releases coming out. It still basically does the same thing, but what has really changed is the knowledge of how to use these tools and what to use them for. And now people really want to adopt them. So I think that's the difference, Brandy.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah. I
agree
think
that
people
people
are
are just
learning that this
Mhm.
is something you incorporate into your daily work. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be intimidating. There are really simple, low-hanging fruit use cases that anyone can do. And it has been completely life-changing for me. I'll never go back to my old way of working. I've acquired so many new skills using GPTs, which is, there's other things you can use, but we prefer the GPTs and we'll explain why. But yes, this is a huge before and after moment, and everyone is going to have to go through it at some point. So it's not
Exactly.
if, but when.
And so what some of the points I want to make for you guys just to kind of drive it home a little bit more. This is going to be a situation where you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have to learn
Mhm.
it. It's the
Mhm.
same as the internet. It's the same as email. Like Brandy said, we really do believe this is a before and after moment with technology. And we're seeing this with clients because especially when now we've got GCs calling us and saying, hey, our CEO is telling us we have to do this and we just don't know what to do with it. So
Mhm.
can you help with that? And the reason that's a game changer in my mind is I've never had a GC in my 20 something years of doing this come to me and say, the CEO is pressuring me to implement technology. They don't pressure you to implement an e-billing system or even a CLM, right? But now the CEO, the CFO even, they're saying, hey, you've got to do this. And so GCs are getting pressure about this. And so this is why we really believe it is a game changer, and you've got to learn how to use this. It is not going
And
to replace lawyers,
the good
but yeah, go ahead, Brandi.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
good news is it's super fun to use, and everyone we've engaged in this process has been super enthusiastic in the end and is just brimming with ideas. And it's just, it's not something to be scared of, or it's an opportunity. It's really a wonderful way
That's
of
right.
working. So
You'll see, it's fun. It's actually exciting. It's not even like you're not gonna have to dedicate a ton of time to learning a new tool. That's not This
mhm.
is very, I would say how we use it is really logical. It's a lot of natural language, and you're not gonna have to spend a lot of time learning a new tool. Much of it it just requires a little bit of training. So let's move forward here. But we do believe that the lawyers and anybody on the legal team who really starts to adopt this, they're going to be better than the people who don't. So this
Yeah,
is a
people
great
will
way for
see the
you to enhance
difference.
your
Yeah.
skills. Absolutely. Brandi, do you want to talk to this slide?
Sure, sure. So there's some people will kind of, I mean, we know we've been seeing this waiting game going on where everybody's sort of sitting at the gate waiting for the next person to do it. They want to see like someone else do it successfully first, and then I'm going to move. So there's a reason that we think it's not good to wait. So one of them is that this technology is moving so fast. This is the worst it will ever perform. It's not perfect, but this is the worst it will ever perform, and it's going to keep getting better. And we are in a new, a new time of just rapid technological change, and it's going to be happening in multiple spaces. It's not just GAI, it's going to be robotics. We're not going, you're not going to have a couple years to kind of adjust to these new changes. It's going to be a rollout after rollout after rollout. So you really are not going to be able to wait for the right time. Like now is the right time, okay? And anything you put in place now, next time the AI model gets updated to the next model, it will automatically get better, and you don't have to do anything, but you'll be all set and ready, when that happens. People who wait for it to be perfect again, they're going to be behind from day one. Yeah, I think that covers all of it.
Yeah. And don't wait for
People are moving, don't wait.
that's right. And it will never be perfect, because I'm still waiting for Outlook to be perfect, and I've been using that tool for 20 years. It's
You
still not
just want to be
perfect.
better than a human, and that's what our goals are, right? So when we build these tools for people, we try to make them better than human level behavior.
And for those of you, in the legal space, right? Whether you're a lawyer, a paraprofessional, an operations professional, whatever you're doing, there is a plethora of tasks that you're doing right now that have to get done, but if you really dig in, it's a waste of time. And so these tools will actually automate much of that work. And so we'll dive into some of those use cases there. And like Brandi said, you will find that once you start using these, it's you won't want to get rid of them, because who wants to go back to manually building agendas if you don't have to do that, and things like that. So we'll get into a little bit of that, but this is a scenario where once you start using it to augment the work you do, you're not going to want to step away from it. Brandi, you
And
want to talk a little bit
yeah,
about the culture shift? Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of articles coming out, people kind of reviewing the first couple years and questioning the investments and why aren't we seeing the return on investment we want? Why are people not using the technology? And we believe it's because people have kind of skipped over the most basic steps first. So they kind of rushed ahead to these more complicated sort of tech solutions, and IT teams experimenting with the technology and what base model should we use, and they're not thinking about the people. So it is important to have that path, right? You want your technical people to understand the technology, but you should have a parallel path that's basically educating your legal professionals and creating a culture shift within the organization. This is a new way of working. Everyone's going to have to do it. We're all going to work together. We're going to partner the early adopters with the ones who are nervous about it. We need to have change management strategies. And in the end, if you're successful, everyone in your team, before they do any task, is going to ask, how can my AI help me with this? What kind of a custom GPT can I create for this task or project? And once you have that in place, then you're ready to do step to the next step and the more complex tools and make the bigger investments. So I guarantee
Exactly.
once you get your team past this culture shift, the financial benefits, you're going to be more efficient. You will see those just magically, I think, line up. But you've got to do this
Yes.
first.
Yeah, and what we're also seeing is, this is really a place where both legal operations professionals, but the legal department in general can really take the lead. Unlike in most tech shifts, you don't usually see legal leading the charge, but this is one. I'll give you a funny story. We had a client who the co-pilot button magically appeared in the corner of their screen, the little rainbowy kind of co-pilot thing. They had no idea what to do with it, so they ignored it and just, they're busy, and so they worked. And then IT came and took it away. And so later they went back and said to IT, hey, we would really like to start using, Gen AI. And IT said, well, you had a Copilot license for 3 months and you never used it. So we yanked all of them. So that's what Brandy's talking about,
Yeah.
in terms of leadership and really understanding how to roll this out properly. Just having an icon appear on somebody's computer that is not a
And
successful change management plan.
And sometimes having so many uses for a single tool is so overwhelming that your brain just goes blank. You're like, what
Totally.
do I do with it? And so, yeah, I mean, that's not a good way to roll it
Exactly.
out. Yeah.
No, not at all. And so one of the things that we say, and what we're going to show you today is really start with extremely easy use cases. Because, for instance, if all of a sudden you have access to Copilot, which can be complicated to use, frankly, or you get co-counsel, and you have, through Westlaw or whatever, you get access to these complicated tools. What we're advocating for is fantastic, but most people won't know how to use them. And so if you start with these little, really easy tools that we're going to show you, and for both personal and professional use, that's how you're really going to start to drive adoption. And then once people get really used to it and say, oh, it can do this, this, and that. Hey, can it also like extract all this information from my contracts? And can it do, the more complex tools, they are available and you could buy them, but don't start there. Start with the more simplistic things. I would love to talk a little bit about use cases now because I think that that's what really drives it home for folks because it's one thing. The perfect example is we had early access to this tool. Brandy came over to my house and she said, ask it anything. And I'm like, I have no idea what to ask it. I literally had no idea where to start. And I think maybe I am a particularly uncreative person, but I kind of feel like most people are in
I
the
think that's
same
a
boat as
common
me.
response. Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's
when
just
you have
overwhelming.
it's overwhelming and you just have no idea what to ask it. And so one of the things that we do and really in looking at the work you do, I can't remember if we actually have this slide in this particular deck, but you probably have all heard of the Eisenhower matrix, which is the four box exercise. Many people label it urgent important matrix. We use urgent and impactful work. Going through an exercise like that is extremely valuable to do something like that once a year. And you'll find that in the lowest, in every quadrant, there's absolutely AI can help with much of the work in every single quadrant. But some of the use cases will be very, very obvious. And so, for instance, taking meeting notes and scanning through them and really trying to understand doing knowledge management, like what is I have a folder filled with client information, but I would have to literally read through all of that in order to summarize it, right? And so when you're working with
Slap a
clients, you can
GPT on
actually
it.
exactly. And I'll tell you what we do, a great example in the work that we do, which is analogous to the work that you guys do for your clients. We actually will build GPTs now for our clients. And so we have an AI note taker that sits in our meetings, download the transcripts, put it into our folder. We slap a GPT on top of it, and Brandy builds these out for us. And then we can actually query it. Wait, what CLM are they using again? How big is their legal department? How many attorneys do they have? What were their goals for the upcoming year? All of these things we're able to query these GPTs and get incredible information right at our fingertips rather than scrolling through and trying to find, wait, I think I talked to them back in
Yeah.
December.
And
you know,
I think
so
I think it's
go ahead.
important to note that if you have a business account with OpenAI, they do not use your data to train their models, that you automatically opt out of that. So if you are going to create your own custom GPTs, make sure you have like a business account, if you know, to be safe. And so that's important. So there isn't, and they don't keep your chat data. They delete it after 30 days. You know, it's very secure. So I personally feel like for this type of GAI, there's a little bit of over concern on the security using it in this way. If you are putting it in software products and doing more complex things with it, yes, or you're using very, very sensitive information, that's different. But the use cases we focus on are very basic, and they're not, you know, dangerous or high risk or anything like that. It's very basic stuff.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And we did
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this, but to drive it home a little bit more, here is an example of worker replacement, which is not what we believe is going to happen in law. So to make it very clear, but you know, this is what's going to happen across the other industries.
Customer
So
support specifically is one of the worst hit. Yeah, this
exactly.
is an example
You
of
got it.
something very aligned for worker replacement.
Exactly. This is worker replacement again, not what the profession of law is going to be experiencing. Clarion is a financial company. There, you know, we have all gone through the hell of calling an 800 number or whatever it is, right? The toll-free number and going through the phone tree only to have it hang up on you after you've been waiting there for 25 minutes. Or the chat bot that does not really understand what you're saying. You know, I have a very funny cartoon sometimes I use in presentations where the dog says woof and the AI says, "Did you just say meow?" You know, there it doesn't really understand you, and you just want an agent to talk to, et cetera. But with the newer AI, with this generative AI, it's actually it it is not just text identification, it's context. It understands the context around it. And it understands natural language. And
And you
so
can't tell the difference between a human and this. It's so good. You don't know you're talking to AI.
it's getting really good. And so for, you know, for in this model where we will see worker replacement, you know, it's going to answer the vast majority of customer service questions. And this is while it may be a little daunting, customer service is something that we all have to suffer through. In fact, like 60 Minutes just did an article on it where it's just gone to hell for all of us, no matter, you know, who, whether it's an airline or your cable or your internet service provider or whatever, it's all awful. But they are reporting satisfaction after experiencing, you know, quick chat. Okay, my bill got modified. This is exactly what I wanted. And now I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't have to sit through a phone tree. And so it's working. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. And it's just
Mhm.
important to note that Klarna followed this study up with an announcement that they are in the process of training their legal team for worker enhancement, not worker replacement. And so they are measuring for their legal team. The goal is adoption. So they're going for 100% adoption, which is really similar to
Exactly.
this case study we have here for Moderna, who worked with OpenAI.
Yes. Yes. And so I think both in medicine and law, and I use them every time I'm telling a story about lawyers, I often pull in stories about doctors because to me, the professions are so similar. And so a great example is earlier this year, I had to have a pretty, I was very shocked by it because I didn't expect it, but I had to have a total hip replacement. And
That's
I
unusual
found
for
out
20-year-old stuff.
I
I've never
know.
heard
Thank you, Brandi. You're getting a raise after this.
that.
Anyway, so I was shocked that I had to go in for this, pretty devastated. And I found out that my doctor uses this machine developed by Johnson and Johnson that scans your whole body and uses data points. AI, it's an AI machine, and it uses all these data points to tell him what size implant to use, the placement, and how long to make your leg length, and like all of these mathematical measurements. And if you know anybody who's had these surgeries in the past, like my dad, when he had it done, he had a limp for the rest of his life because his leg length wasn't exactly the same because the doctor's eyeballing it, right? And so as I'm talking to the doctor, I said, you know, I know you use this machine. And he's like, I absolutely do. But just like a lawyer would say, he's like, but I'm the professional. I have to eyeball it and make the call. I'm like, absolutely. I totally get that. I don't want the machine making the decision. I want the doctor with the experience making the decision. And I tell you that because by the way, 100% successful surgery. I'm 100% back to where I was before, and I am so thrilled with the success of this surgery. And I'm telling you now that I would not go to a doctor who did not use this machine, because I know I've heard of the horror stories where people, they got the wrong size implant, the plate, it still hurts, it just is not good. And I have zero pain. I forget that I had the surgery done. I'm in amazing health. And I think that my doctor was better because he was augmented by this machine that did the calculations for him.
Yeah.
And so this is going to, it's a good analogy, right, Brandi?
Yeah, because we are actually having clients now reaching out saying, hey, we want to use outside counsel. We don't want to use one that's not using GAI. Can you give us a list of, who has tools they're using, who has publicly said they're using it? So, that's just the future, right? Everybody's going to be looking for people who know how to use these tools because they're so powerful.
Exactly. And if I want you guys to start thinking about it in terms of, all of a sudden, you've now got an associate working for you.
Yeah.
And so they're going to do a lot of the footwork for you. You never want to just, release anything that comes from the AI out into the wild without you reviewing it first. But now you've got somebody working for you who can actually put together, first drafts, do summaries, pull key terms from contracts, all of that stuff.
Yeah. And this is a good time to mention that when I started using the custom GPTs, our IT team on our team was just me and my GPTs to start, so I didn't have a lot of coding experience, but I was making Python applications, creating, hooking up databases, all that stuff. And so now we actually have humans in our team, which is great. But the point is that I was able to augment my skills enough to start get the team going and then hand it off to experts who are actually studying this in school. And the interesting thing too is we actually, our IT team is very, very young because this technology is so new. They're just learning it in school. So my son is a data scientist at ASU, and OpenAI is actually developing the curriculum for data scientists as we speak. So these kids are on the cutting edge of what's going on in this space. So
Yeah, it's
um,
pretty amazing.
is
There,
it okay if
I've,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I never felt both older and more stupid than in the meetings with these children who are so smart. Yeah, but go ahead, go
Yeah,
talk
it's
to this.
amazing. Yeah, I just
Mhm.
wanted I'll talk to this slide real quick. So this was Moderna and OpenAI worked together, and their goal was to get Moderna's full staff using custom GPTs. And so we feel like this is where people need to start. This is like square one. So they partnered in early 2023. They had the goal of 100% adoption, and they were wildly successful. So they had, they were measuring how often people were using it. They measured how many custom GPTs people created, how many active users there were on the system. And so, as I said, in the beginning, this stuff is really important to measure. But once you get your results, your team is reskilled. You're not gonna, they're not, it's not gonna be like, oh, Bob stopped using it, we gotta go bug him, People are
Yeah,
going to just, it's a way of using AI just completely as a part of everything you do, right? You become, it becomes just a part of all your daily tasks. And so on the next slide, the CEO said her team of a few thousand now is performing like a team of 100,000. That's how powerful it is when people can augment their skills with these simple tools.
that's right. And just to, I'm going to dumb it down for you in a way that made sense to me, because Brandy's um, way smarter than me, if I'm being totally honest. So let me explain it to
It's
you.
more AI savvy, I guess. But
Yeah, very much so. So you'll hear, so what we're describing, there's the large language model. So OpenAI, ChatGPT is their large language model, right? And there's others. There's Gemini. There's a bunch of other ones out there.
yeah,
Could throw some out.
Claude, yeah.
Claude, thank you. Okay,
Llama is an open source one that just
that's right.
toppled OpenAI's as the most impressive model right now, but that will probably change in a few months. Yeah.
It's a horse race, as
Yeah.
Brandi has trained me to say. So we're building everything out in OpenAI's the Chat GPT interface. When we talk about GPTs, which is exactly what we've been talking about, and ways, to identify how you can use them, the GPT is just an extra set of instructions that's built on top of the OpenAI's LLM, right? And so, for instance, I'm sure we'll show you this. If I think we'll have time to actually do a quick demo, but what you'll see is the Chat GPT interface, and then on the left navigation bar, you see all of these GPTs, and all they do is they kind of put guardrails around
Mhm.
how the
Put it in a
how
box. Yeah.
it puts
And
it
give
in
it
a box. So
instructions.
that's right. They're just a set of instructions. So, for instance, we have travel GPTs, we have recipes, we have contract summarizing GPTs, we've got writing assistants, performance evaluations, and all of them are different GPTs. And the reason we do that is for one, security. But the second thing is you'll get a different answer. If I just go to
Mhm.
Chat GPT and type in, write me a performance evaluation, it's going to look a whole heck of a lot different than if I go to my performance evaluation GPT and actually am prompted
And it's going to
through
look
that
different every
process.
time
So,
you do it. Every time you do it, you're
yes,
going to have to, no, do it like this, no, change it like
right,
that. Whereas you can
right.
put a template in the knowledge base of your GPT and then it does it right the first time, saves you a ton of time.
Exactly. Exactly. So you have a template, and it will respond in the way you need it to respond for that particular task. So that's what we're describing here. Okay. Go ahead, Brandy. Do you want to talk a
Oh,
little bit
sure. Yeah.
about
So
identifying use
yeah,
cases? Yeah.
this was what Steph mentioned a few slides ago. So, there's this thing, the value plus exercise. So UpLevel has been doing the value exercise forever, where you're mapping out the legal skills. Did you want to go to the next slide? I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
yeah. This is,
Hmm.
so on the bottom. So the way we used to categorize the skills was by urgency and impact, and so we had these different quadrants. So we've taken that kind of to the next level, and we are funneling that information into these GAI quadrants. And the quadrants basically measure the suitability of a GAI to do the task and how complex the task is. And
Exactly. So
so,
actually, we have the
yeah,
GAI
yeah. So
overlay.
we're basically laying this on top of the value exercise. And the upper left quadrant, that is where the tasks are most suitable for GAI and they're the least complex. And that is the space that we are recommending that everybody start in. So this is custom GPTs, Copilot, Google has their own solution that's similar to making custom GPTs. So you want to find the right tool and spend as much time as you need to in this space, seeing what you can do. So we're all experimenting, seeing, how much can we take care of and how much of an impact can we have with the most simple, inexpensive tools first. And we're going to reskill our team. And then you can move to the quadrant to the right, which is those are tasks that are highly suitable for GAI, but they're very complicated. And these are more high-risk tasks with more sensitive documentation you're using. For this, you really want to have an expert, like a more sophisticated legal tech tool, like a CLM system, e-billing system, something like that. So the top two quadrants, we consider those GPT first chair, human second chair. The bottom two quadrants, the bottom left quadrant, are tasks that are less suitable for GAI. So you can still use GAI as assistance, but you want to make sure that you're putting more of yourself into that task because the GAI is not as good at it. So it's okay, I think, to tackle those if it's not, the tasks aren't too complex. Once you get into the really complex tasks that are not well suited for GAI, it's really great to reach out to experts like ALSPs that have prompt engineering experience or partnering with AI firms and outside counsel that's using GAI. So this kind of helps you just understand what is appropriate for GAI and what's less appropriate, right? But I think the biggest mistake we're seeing is people are either skipping the first quadrant or they're kind of getting stuck between the first and second quadrants by creating some in-house tools that are maybe not sophisticated enough to do what the legal tech tools do, but they're too complicated to promote adoption like you would on the left. And so they put a bunch of money in and they're stuck with a tool that no one's using and they don't really know where to go with it. So we're trying to prevent people from making that mistake. And we really recommend you spend a good bit of time in the upper left quadrant, just measuring adoption on your team and just getting these tools in people's hands.
That's exactly right. And
And
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. Talk.
Okay, yeah, so just
No,
to
you talk about
continue,
the comment. Mhm.
so this is what we've seen with our clients we're working with. I mentioned the top one, so creating in-house tools that are too complex to facilitate adoption, but not sophisticated enough to replace what professional tools do. So you've wasted money on a tool no one wants to use. Skipping over the first quadrant and immediately purchasing a very expensive legal tech solution. So you may have been enamored by some GPT bells or GAI bells and whistles that you saw, and then you find out later, wow, I could have created that chatbot with my custom GPTs and didn't have to spend all the money on this tool. So once you get all your low-hanging fruit taken care of, so once you get all the custom GPTs running, you look at what you weren't able to do with those tools, and that's what you look for in the more expensive, more
Complex.
sophisticated tools. The
Exactly.
other thing that's important about the quadrants is you don't ever want to over rely on GAI for tasks it's not well suited for. So you shouldn't be doing, GPT first, human second for things that are too complex and not well aligned for GAI. And if you do
Exactly.
that, you're going to have issues with accuracy, and the trust in the technology in your team is going to suffer.
And
And then,
trust is a big one. Yeah, just to
yeah,
hammer that home a little bit more, because again, people, I have worked with legal teams long enough to know the second it doesn't work, and that's also a hurdle you have to get through. It will screw
it's a
up. It
process.
won't, it's a process. So just keep telling it what it's doing wrong and keep retraining it, and it will behave the way you need it to behave, but it does require a little bit of
It has to get to know you. Yeah.
it has to get to know you, and it's like you have a new employee, basically. That's how you have to think of it, and they require a little bit of guidance, right? And so do these tools. But if you really kind of try to give somebody a GPT for a totally inappropriate task, you lose goodwill. They're going to say, "This didn't work for me," and good luck getting them back. So the goal is to really get them using these for the right, start very, very small with very, very simple tasks, and just get them using the writing assistant and things like that, and then start building on that. You'll get champions on the team who will help you promote.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is a really important one. So this is a study that I just saw recently, and I believe this one was done by Microsoft and LinkedIn.
Yep.
And so basically, this is an interesting disconnect. So for current in-house employees, 45%. So this is for all companies. This is not just legal. This is for all companies that were surveyed. 45% of executives are not investing in AI tools for in-house employees, and only 39% of people globally who use AI at work have gotten any training. And only 25% of companies are planning to offer GAI training this year. However, when it comes to potential new hires, it's a completely different story. So 77% of leaders say that early in career talent will get greater responsibility due to AI. They are 71% more likely to hire a less experienced candidate with AI skills. And 66% of leaders say they will not hire someone without AI experience. So if you kind of think about it for a minute, it doesn't make any sense. Why are you depriving your in-house employees of the skills that you are expecting from your new hires? You're creating a situation where you're actually cheating your employees in this model, right? You're going to make them the least effective members of your team.
That's exactly right. And the I think the teams that we're seeing that are most effective right now, it's very new. These are
Mhm.
not they have no experience in this space whatsoever. But where we're getting the most traction is where the IT teams are very engaged. And just like I said earlier, legal is the perfect, again, legal's never on the cutting edge of technology, but in this instance, a lot of legal teams are raising their hand saying, "Hey, we want to give this a shot." And so all of a sudden they're front and center now for IT teams. They're getting resources. So if you actually raise your hand and say, "I want to do this. I want to be a beta tester." IT is actually in a lot with we were just on another call with another client whose IT team just got them all an enterprise-wide license and really wants them to start using this. So we're helping with that training. We're helping to train their IT team because this is new to them
Yeah.
too. So
And legal can be a
yeah.
good jumping off point for the rest of the company. So for example, legal can create an FAQ assistant and use it inside the team, get it perfected, and then make it available outside of the team, right? And people can
Exactly.
start, using that.
Exactly. So we have, and in fact, Brandy, I would like to skip the last two slides because in our last 10 minutes,
Oh,
what I
okay.
would
It's
really
gone by
like to
fast.
do, if that's okay by, I know,
Sure.
right? Because
It's
we're
your
talking about
company,
something,
Steph. Go do whatever you want.
and we're talking about something we really enjoy. So the time goes by fast for us. I
Yeah.
hope the audience feels the same way and they're really enjoying this. But what I would love to do is actually show you the interface. Do that is to show you some of the actual use cases. I think I have a lot opened right now.
So you're going to share your ChatGPT interface with all the
I
show the GPTs.
am
Okay.
exactly. Um, so let's see if I can do that. Bear
So
with me.
I'll talk to that last slide while you're doing this, the one we just skipped.
Sure.
Again, that was just a reminder that if you set up the custom GPTs, you will have the metrics available to be able to measure adoption on your team. You'll be able to see who's using it, what they're using it for. And the really cool thing is you can take that chat history and you can feed that back into the GPT and you can improve its performance and customize it more for your team based on how your team is using it. Because these, we could give the same GPT to 2 or 3 different companies. They're probably
Exactly.
going to use it a little bit differently.
Exactly. Okay, so here I have ChatGPT open. Let me share my screen.
Starting to share. Oh, there we go. We got it. I can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Are you seeing my slide deck or ChatGPT?
I'm seeing the ChatGPT interface.
So, so the reason I wanted to, because here on the left navigation, all of these things are the GPTs that we've built that are in our library. That Brandy's built most of them, and I've actually built a couple. And the reason I'm saying that is not to brag, but it's easy. And so even somebody like me can build some of these more simplistic GPTs. And that's for another training session. We can show you how to do, but to give you an idea of what some of these do, we actually have, here's a perfect example. The University of California, they're a public entity, so all their policies are public, and their legal department gets inundated with questions like, "Hey, can I accept a gift card from a vendor? Can I go to lunch with, a vendor? And what are my financial reporting obligations?" So we built this GPT on top of their policies that literally answers questions very quickly. So if I click on, what are my financial report, my system is so slow right now. So I don't know. We'll see how quickly this actually feeds in. But if you ask it, what are my financial reporting obligations, it will read the policy and it will provide you with
Yeah,
the
so you want
actual
to make,
answer.
that's
So
the thing is
this
when it says searching knowledge base, you know that it doesn't have internet access. It's just focused on your policies and procedures in the knowledge base. So
There
yeah,
are ways to build these securely that Brandy has done, and it gets more complex. Like the simple
yeah,
ones, like the Wanderlust one that I built is very easy. There's no security because you're just asking it to build you travel agendas. This is a different story. You don't want it hallucinating. You want it to be accurate. Brandy has put in an accuracy checker. She's done all of these things to make sure it's better than human when it's
right.
answering in terms of accuracy.
So our
But
data
all that being
scientist tests them to make sure that they come out
exactly.
better than human level performance. It's machine
Which
learning
is
tech.
a good point because some of these, that's right, because some of these you don't need them. Your writing
Yeah,
assistant, you don't need it to be perfectly, you don't need accuracy checkers. It's helping you draft, an email or whatever. But for these, if it's answering policy questions, it needs to be accurate. If it's
yeah,
pulling data from contracts, it needs to be accurate, right? So some of them are more complex than others. But here's a great example of okay, and you could set these up so that it will answer yes or no. And then here's why. Here's the link to the policy. Here's you contact Ruth for more questions and all of that. So you can design a template to answer in a certain way. But these are the types of tools that will save teams a ton of headache and time.
yeah,
And it will allow to back to the worker augmentation theory. It will allow you guys to focus on more meaningful work. You don't want to be answering the same policy questions on this financial reporting policy over and over again. You would get bored very quickly in your role. So we believe that these types of tools are the ones that are really going to be able to help you move up the value chain and not waste time. There's
And
one, this is, oh yeah, please go
oh,
ahead.
see, I was just going to say one thing. The really cool thing too is once you get the GPT set up, you can actually make them more sophisticated by mixing them with Copilot workflow automations. So, for example, if someone asks a question and the policy bot doesn't have the answer, it can actually email a legal professional and say, "Hey, can you follow up with this person?" So you can use Copilot and GPTs together, later on to make more advanced AI systems.
GPTs plus workflow are much more powerful because
Yeah.
going back to the UC policy one, it can actually open up a matter if there's workflow behind it. So, what, this didn't answer my question, or I have, further questions. Okay, let's get you to the right person. So you can, if you actually, ultimately incorporate workflow behind it, it definitely gets more powerful. When I'm talking about some of the personal ones, Gabriel, who's Brandy's husband, also built Master Chef, which if you have ChatGPT on your phone, you could take a picture of whatever your fridge, your pantry, it will give you all kinds of recipes. This is my husband's favorite
Based on just what
GPT.
you have in your pantry there. Yeah, it's cool.
It identifies what you have and then we'll give you recipes based on this. We built this one because this one is a contract summary tool that will actually, you can upload, it does licensing agreements specifically, and Brandy put a template in it with all of the key terminology that she wants pulled out, dates of service, all
And
of
that'll be
the,
different for every company. You have your own
it would,
template in there. Yeah.
that's right. Every company and every type of contract type, right? And so, but to show you that it can have personality. David Sedaris is a humorist, and so she made him sound like David, who's like, "Let's go on this contracting journey together," and but just to show, because you can give it personality of any,
You
you
can
can train
really
it on
have
your
fun.
own.
Yeah.
You can really have fun with it and give it a different tone, because when I have Chat GPT just write me stuff, it's super flowery. It's not how I write at all. But my writing assistant is trained like me, so it writes more like me. So you can
I just want to
absolutely
say too, I'm
customize me.
experimenting with a new prompting technique, which is a clone yourself GPT, where not only does it copy your writing style, but as you use it over time, it picks up your decision making style, your personality, like you basically everything about you. So the more you interact with it, the more it kind of reflects you. So it's just fun. We're, like I said, we're just all learning together and experimenting and coming up with new ideas.
Yeah. And again, we really believe, like, just do these simple use cases and you'll drive adoption and people will
Yeah.
get used to it. If you try to do the super complex stuff right away, it's going to be tough.
Mhm.
So, like, we have this one that does legal offsites. Anybody who's in legal operations has been saddled with planning legal offsites forever. It's a very tedious task. But here's, this one will actually walk you through, okay, what's the theme of the event? What are you trying to do here? And then it will build you a whole agenda. So we've got a bunch of different ones of these. I have the 24 by
You're
7 bestie.
bestie.
Yeah. It's because this was a rebuttal to the motivational GPT, which Brandy trained on a psychology book that will tell you, like, I'm in this situation. What's the best
It
way to
shows how
handle
your
it?
biology affects your decision making and your hormones and
Very
everything. So you can
good.
say, like, I had this conversation. Why did I react this way? And it'll biologically tell you, like, this hormone did this and this and this. And she didn't
It's
like
pretty
the
crazy.
response.
No, because it was siding with my husband and not me, and I know I was right. So my rebuttal is to make this one that just totally agrees with me on everything. So it's catering to my first instinct.
Yeah, girl,
But
you know where
you
it's
know,
at.
like, kick him out. No, I'm teasing. So, that's just you could really have fun with these. The Wanderlust Guide, we built this in the last Link event that we did where people wanted to travel. And so, we built this one out. So this is just to show you that I think you can really use these in a variety of ways, both personally and professionally, to help drive some of the adoption. Because I think, like Brandy said, once you start using these, you're not going to go back to brainstorming
Never.
on your own. And so I would recommend starting with the writing assistance, a quick and easy contract summary one is great, and meeting planning is very, very
Mhm.
good. And
A homework assistant for your kid, to
yes.
do their math. things like
Thank
that.
God I'm out of that. Out of that phase.
I know.
I would have really used the heck out of that one, especially since my kid was in a Spanish immersion school and I never had any idea what the homework
My
was
kid takes
about.
after my husband. I have no idea what he's talking about. So
Your husband's an engineer. So yeah, after
exactly.
fourth grade math, I was out. So yeah, so there's all these homework assistants and all of that. So that's really ultimately everything I think that we wanted to cover today. But this is just, phase one. This is you guys dipping your toe into this GAI pool, so to speak. And we are around if anybody has any questions. And we hope that
We
we're invited back
love
to maybe
talking
do a
about it. It's
session
super
two
fun. I
sometime.
have to
Yeah,
try to
that's
tone
it.
it down so I don't seem crazy.
She drank the GAI
Oh
Kool-Aid.
yeah, a long time ago.
But thank you for having us today. We hope you
Thank you
enjoy the
so
rest of the
much.
event.